Welcome back to Beat the Count. I'm Chris, your boxing enthusiast. We are live here from Sweet Science Boxing and MMA in Hawthorne, California. We got the ring behind us, we got the bags beside us, and we got a packed house here today on the panel. So why don't I start by introducing, to my left, co-host, lead writer of Supreme Boxing, Anthony, the man they call Stacks Saldana. Welcome back.
What's going on, man? I'm glad to be back.
I know, man. I feel like you got demoted. You're not co-host anymore.
Nah,
you're like special guest.
Nah, it's been a few weeks,
attendee.
man. I was in Vegas for the Canelo fight and the Boxing Expo. Then we had Mother's Day, and then I finally drug my ass back to Hawthorne.
You finally made it all the way back to Hawthorne?
Made it all the way back.
I know.
Staying busy. Huh?
That's right.
And on my far left, I have Bill Santos joining us today. What's going on, Bill?
Yeah. How's it going?
Bill is a boxing coach, a fighter in the Masters division, and an avid boxing enthusiast. And I know this because I see you at all the events, bro.
That's right.
I catch it on Instagram. But actually, we met, I should say, at an event, Sean Porter versus your Dennis Ugas, right? Here at Dignity Health Sports Park in Carson.
It was cold.
It was cold. Sean Porter was like wearing a blanket.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Yep.
Sean Porter was wearing a blanket.
He had to stretch after each round.
I was like at the very back of the media section, and he was one row behind me.
Yeah, I stayed home that night, man. I stayed bundled up in my recliner watching that fight.
Yeah. I got to ask, though. Since you were there, who did you think won that fight? Porter or Ugas?
I think you got to take it from the champion.
You got to take it from the champ.
And Porter was moving around a lot a bit. He did get knocked down.
He got knocked down. That was a straight knockdown, right?
That was a knockdown.
That was legit. They got a name for that. They have a name in boxing. When you get punched and fall over, there's a name for that.
Yeah, it is.
They call that a knockdown.
That's right.
You agree, right?
He was down, man.
That was a straight up knockdown.
There wasn't a slip. There wasn't anything going on. That was a straight knockdown.
That was a straight up knockdown.
Yeah.
And now he gets rewarded.
He got bailed out.
He got bailed out.
He's a money man.
Well, that knockdown made the difference on the scorecard.
It did.
Yeah,
It did.
so if they had called that a knockdown, your Dennis Ugas would be the WBC champion who's going to unify with Errol Spence right now.
Yeah, but now it's Porter.
But now it's Porter. People probably want to see Porter and Spence more anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Don't you think?
Because of the name.
Yeah.
Man, you know who I feel bad for in that division, man? I feel bad for Terrence Crawford, man. He's basically locked out of the whole damn mix. You got Thurman now with Pacquiao. That show's about to happen. Danny Garcia, Mikey Garcia out here in L.A.
Man.
At the end of July.
What are you talking about? He could fight Luis Collazo. No.
Man, who is Terrence Crawford gonna fight?
They'll find somebody. The money has to make sense eventually.
But with who?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good point.
Yeah.
I don't know who he's gonna fight. I don't. It's too challenging.
When did he resign?
Oh, like he signed like a ridiculous deal, like a 7-year deal, wasn't it? With Top Rank and ESPN. Yeah, and he just resigned like last year. He extended. He just resigned like last year.
Wow.
So. But let's talk a little bit about you, man, because one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the show is because we rapped a little bit when we met at that fight. We were talking a little bit.
Yeah.
And first of all, you coach presently out of Jackrabbit in Long Beach. So shout out to Jackrabbit for sure.
Yes.
And how long have you been coaching there?
Probably be about 2 years.
2 years? Okay.
Yeah. I was competing before that.
I was gonna say, So you were competing in the Masters division. So can you explain what that is for people who might not know?
Well, in the amateurs, you have up to age, I believe it's 30, that can go in the Golden Gloves.
Yeah.
30 or 35 or
35,
like
I think it is. Yeah.
And then after you turn 35, you can no longer fight in the amateurs. You have to fight in the Masters. So some people who get late starts in boxing, in order to get your competition level up, you have to still compete. So when you compete, they have this division, the Masters division, which is 35 and up to whoever wants to fight in the bucket list.
Yeah. So first of all, do you mind saying how old you are?
Yeah, I'm 53.
You're 53 and competing in the Masters.
Yes.
Okay, so was this a bucket list item for you, or how did you?
No, it wasn't. How it started actually was my dad actually used to box. He used to fight with some of the, but he was an alcoholic.
Yeah.
And then I always wanted to box, but I always had to work. So what happened is I went to the gym to actually give somebody some information because I grew up in martial arts, and Bruce Lee used to always talk about reading and reaction skills. So I was really good with reading and reaction. I saw this one kid named Lonnie Adams that was really good, and I wanted to give him some tips. So when I went there, I saw this guy named JJ, and he was mitting somebody, and I was kind of a little bit fascinated because I was just into boxing, and I was like, man, I think I want to train. So then I started to train, and then I started to get good, and I started to spar a lot of youngsters, and I was hurting them. And I was like thinking, I wasn't never thinking to do it for me until, you want to get a lot, you see a lot of talent in other people, and you want to, hey, you should do this.
Encourage that talent, right?
Encourage that talent. But they would always fall off.
Yeah.
They'd start and then fall off. And I figured the only person I could control was myself. So I said, well, why don't you do it? Just for I wanted to set an example for all the people who had excuses.
And how old were you when you got into the ring?
47.
47 years old.
Yeah.
Wow.
Check that out. We have a non-believer on here already. I don't want to mispronounce your name, but homeboy jumped on and said 53 BS. You must look good for your age, brother.
1966.
66.
So you started fighting 6 years ago, amateur, 6 years ago. Congratulations, man. Even for being at that age and wanting to do something. I'll be 42 years old this year, and I don't know, man. I don't see myself getting into it. I could probably come into the gym and take a few rounds or this and that, but to actually fight, man, I wouldn't want to get hit, man.
It's a trip. I actually sparred with Ryan Garcia too.
You did?
Wow.
Yes.
How long ago was that?
It was like about 3 years ago. What happened, he came to the gym and we were sparring that day, and he got into the ring. I didn't know who he was.
Yeah.
He had that baby face, and I was like, man, this kid looks young. I don't want to hit him hard.
Yeah.
I didn't know what his background was.
Yeah.
And it actually went pretty good.
So you hung in there with Ryan, huh?
Yeah, I got in there with him, and I wasn't trying to hurt him.
Yeah.
Because he was like 18 at the time, still a youngster, right about to turn pro. And I wasn't trying to hit him hard because I've been known for having heavy hands.
Yeah.
And you're a little kid, you don't feel no justification to hit on them.
No, especially in sparring, man, because it's more of a learning tool. You bring these youngsters in there so they can get some work and they can learn and perfect their skills. So of course you don't want to go in there and hurt this guy, but it's funny that you said I didn't really know who he was. And
yeah, I didn't until after the fact.
Is this? Am I the only one who noticed Stax just said he could probably get in there and do a couple rounds? Did you catch that? You caught that, right? Yeah.
Man.
So you could get in there and do a couple rounds.
We could do a couple rounds afterwards, bro.
I just watched you try and jump rope 5 minutes before this thing.
And I was doing it frontwards and backwards, bro. So just stop already, man. Hey, I want to give a big shout out right now to Richard Ortiz, man. He's from the Boxer's Voice up in I'm sorry, the Fighter's Voice.
Oh man, you're getting
I messed it up. Sorry about that, Richard.
Already?
The Fighter's Voice in Fresno, man. He's got a podcast once a week. So what's up, man? Richard Ortiz.
What's up, Richard Ortiz? Check out Richard Ortiz podcast.
The Fighter's Voice.
Make sure you don't say it wrong and give him somebody else's information.
Right, exactly, man. Yeah, but no, did you catch the fights this weekend, man? Did you catch any of the fights this weekend?
Oh yeah, Deontay Wilder's looking really good.
Yeah, we were talking about Wilder, before we came on the air, and talking about the emotions building up to this fight and his last two fights. He had the draw with Fury, and then last night, the quick knockout of Dominic Brezeale, and the emotions that led up to him. And why don't you recap a little bit about what you were saying about, what a fighter feels and about him actually becoming better as a fighter because of it.
Well, when you're first getting into the ring, before you get into the ring, you experience all these different emotions. It's not like sparring where you're getting in there with a guy and you're mutually not really trying to kill each other, like hard sparring. You might know the guy that you're sparring with and have a relationship with him. So you're trying to keep a relationship so you can continue getting sparring. You're not trying to really hurt the guy. But when you get into the real deal, all these emotions are building up, and you get so much anxiety and anxiousness. You just want to get it started. The anxiety drains you more than the actual fight.
Yeah. So
you have to prepare to keep your composure and learn a way to relax yourself before. It's like they say the calm before the storm.
Yeah.
And Deontay Wilder in the beginning, if you notice how when he usually used to start, he used to flail, wildly. He would lose his composure, especially when he got a person hurt. But in this last fight, it didn't look like he lost his composure. It looked like he learned from that last experience that he had with Tyson Fury, and he kept his composure, and the punches were more clean and sharp. And when you seen that 1-2, it was a 1-2 from hell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Genuinely, our analysis of this fight was going to take 15 times longer than the actual fight occurred. I think it was evident. I was actually at Roy Engelbert's live event here in at the Gardens Casino.
Yeah, Hawaiian Gardens.
At Hawaiian Gardens. So I was attending that. So I pulled it up on my phone on Showtime randomly to check throughout the day. I watched the Gary Russell fight, and I also watched the Deontay Wilder fight.
Yeah.
The Deontay Wilder fight came on, and I would say within the first 30 seconds, he actually landed a right hand that let you know it's there.
Yes.
Right, like he landed a right hand. It wasn't clean, but you looked at it and said, "Oh, that the punch is there." Like it was
the one when his chin touched his back.
It was, and I would say from that point on, it was just a matter of it was just you were just counting down the seconds to when is that going to be positioned correctly, and it was about a minute and a half later when it was positioned correctly.
It didn't take him long at all.
No.
And he was. Man, he made a big-time example of Dominic Brezeale of what he is actually capable of doing.
Yes.
I mean, we know he has the power.
Yes.
But last night really proved it to any doubters, any naysayers, anybody that actually thinks that he doesn't have a chance against Anthony Joshua. He's alive. I mean, if you want to call him a dog, he's a live dog.
Oh, yeah.
And honestly, I mean, with his performance last night, he may actually be the favorite going into a fight against Anthony Joshua.
If you think about it, it was the same combination that put Joshua on the ground with Klitschko.
Yeah.
But he has a better 1-2 than Klitschko.
Yeah, and Klitschko was on his way out, man.
Yes.
Klitschko hasn't fought since fighting Joshua, so.
Yeah, I think the thing that's interesting about that is you say it proves all the naysayers, and if social media teaches me anything, it doesn't. So what I mean by that is there are people all over Facebook and social media today who are saying, hey, this guy still can't hang with the greats, right? He can't hang in the golden era. He can't hang with the Lennox Lewises of past, of yesterday, right? He can't hang with these people. And I think that's interesting because that's really nostalgia speaking. And I appreciate it too. There are fighters who I grew up watching who I feel as though they can do no wrong because I idolize them as a fan when I was watching them when I was younger. But the truth is, biologically, those guys aren't made up of anything stronger than any of the guys who are competing today. Right?
Exactly. Except for these guys are 6'7".
Yeah, exactly. In fact, biologically, they have some tremendous advantages in the fact that the three men who are at the top of this division right now are monstrous men. Yeah. They are gigantic.
Exactly. And if you compare him to Lewis, or you compare, seeing Wilder get into the ring with Lewis, if you want to make that fantasy matchup, all you got to do is look back at the Hasim Rahman fight against Lennox Lewis.
Yes.
And Lewis playing with them and gets caught and gets knocked out. I mean,
people are going to take this the wrong way. I'm not saying that Lennox Lewis couldn't beat Deontay Wilder or Muhammad Ali couldn't beat Deontay Wilder. I'm saying that, to your point, he's a live dog, and he's a dangerous man for as long as he's standing in front of you. You might knock him out in the first round. That could happen, right? But for as long as he's in there and able to throw those hands, he is dangerous to anybody, whether you're Lennox Lewis or anybody else for that matter, because they're really not made of any sturdier stuff, guys. I don't want to burst your bubble, but it is what it is.
If you look at Ali, you go back and you look at Ali and the first couple of losses that he had, and you look at the styles of fighters he was losing against. He was losing against pressure fighters. He lost to Ken Norton. He lost to, and then his first fight with Spinks when Spinks was 6-0.
Yes.
Spinks attacked him the way that Wilder would probably attack Ali. He would probably go in and try to attack Ali, and would Ali's defense, be able to stand up to Wilder?
Yes.
Who knows? But
Tyson Fury's could, and they
is,
have similar defensive sort of capabilities.
Yes.
Yeah,
exactly. So
except for Tyson Fury, 6'9". Ali is 6'3".
That's true.
6'4".
Yeah.
Lennox Lewis was the taller guy, 6'5".
Yeah.
Holyfield was 6'1" or 6'2".
Yeah.
Like even they questioned Holyfield. What do you think about this guy? And Holyfield was just He said, man, I've never seen a guy with the power that can punch through a guy's glove and knock him out. He said he's hitting people
like Stavern. Like when he knocks Stavern out without hitting him clean.
And then Ortiz never been knocked down, and he hit him in the top of his head and knocked him out. He said that's the hardest part of your body.
Yeah.
And he's hitting people in the hardest part of their body and shattering them.
You know, before you came into the studio, you know, me and my partner here, Sean, were talking. And I think one of the biggest setbacks, I think, for Wilder and for PBC is that you just have certain people that don't like the product. They don't like PBC. They don't like Wilder for whatever reason it may be.
Al Heyman.
Whether it's Al Heyman.
The reason is Al Heyman, yeah.
Exactly. I mean, and that's sad because you have to give credit where credit's due. And now, you know, maybe Wilder didn't have that great amateur career coming up. Maybe people didn't know who he is. Maybe people said, well, he didn't fight anybody. He cherry-picked his way to the championship. But look at where he's at now. Look at the level of competition he's fighting against.
Deontay Wilder was an Olympian. He was an Olympic bronze medalist.
Yeah, but No, but his amateur career wasn't.
It was short.
It was very short.
It went to the highest heights that you can get to in amateur boxing.
But what I'm saying is that, you know, people have always put Deontay Wilder or talked about him in a negative type of manner, and they're not giving credit where credit's due.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you're a boxing fan, whatever personal feelings aside, you got to give this man credit because he is fighting at a very, very high level right now at this point of his career, and he can be in there and beat any heavyweight out there.
Where have you seen somebody get knocked out with their guards up?
Yeah.
Like, he knocked Stavern out with his hands up.
With his hands up. You know, the thing that I think is interesting about this fight, though, is the fact that it's a common opponent with Anthony Joshua. And so you will actually see now, you can sort of draw comparisons in the sense that you can see this is what it looked like when Anthony Joshua fought Brezeale, and this is what it looked like when Deontay Wilder fought Brezeale.
Yeah.
And so, and in keeping in mind that at the time Anthony Joshua is fighting Brezeale, he's still an undefeated fighter,
yes.
right? So he hasn't lost any kind of confidence. He's presumably at the prime of his career competing for a title.
Yes.
So you could say that psychologically perhaps there's some difference in Brezeale, but we do get a chance to look at it and go, well, that didn't look like the Anthony Joshua Brezeale fight. Despite the fact that Anthony Joshua was dominating that fight, it did take 7 rounds or more for him to actually put Brezeale away. This was a completely different type of domination that we saw in the Anthony Joshua fight some years ago.
Yes.
Somebody's saying that Ortiz could have but didn't know how to finish Wilder. You know, honestly, we have talked about this before, and I think Wilder actually got saved, man. That 7th round when he was up against the ropes, he got saved by the bell. He came back and he showed what he was made of a champion, and he came back to actually beat Ortiz. I mean, and styles make fights as well. You know, you have to look at stylistically the type of fighters that you're getting into the ring with. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, who you're fighting. Styles make fights.
Yes. Plus, Ortiz is a lefty, and Joshua was ducking Ortiz. Everybody was basically ducking Ortiz, and not only in that, Wilder knew how to survive basically in that round. It was his survival skills that helped him. The ref looks at a lot of things when you're in there. He looks at your eyes. He looks at your body language to see how hurt you are. He knows how much time is left on the clock. And in a championship fight, he's not just going to end it that quick. So he's going to allow it, just like did with Tyson Fury. He allowed him to get up, gave him the amount of time to recuperate. So Wilder was able to manage the rest of the time. He was able to know how to survive. And if you look at after that, a lot of punches that looked like they were hitting was not hitting him. Yeah. So he was able to make it through that round and come back and put it down.
We also had a couple other fights, man, besides that quick fight.
I should say there were 5 world championship fights this weekend. So there are fights from Thursday, and there are fights all the way through today. So going on, we have Tom Loeffler at the Hollywood Avalon here. And there were 5 world title fights in that period. So Deontay Wilder, of course, was one. On the undercard of Deontay Wilder, Gary Russell Jr.
Yeah, and I didn't see that fight because...
What do you think about him?
Had other stuff going on, but yeah, what do you think of that fight with Gary Russell?
I think the same thing that everyone thinks, which is that he's simply not active enough. It's the same criticism you hear all the time. Gary Russell Jr. fights once a year. So he kind of pokes his head out every year and calls out a big name, takes a year off, and then fights someone who's not the name, right? So like it's kind of unfortunate. Like you could see he's basically he wore a shirt this time that said, "What's up, Al? Leo's next." Right? So he said Leo's next, but he's going to go into hibernation after this.
He's making excuses, though. He's making excuses saying that the reason why he's not fighting is because people are not answering the contract. People are not giving him fights. Some people are ducked, but I don't think he's being ducked.
Even people who are ducked still find other opponents to fight, right?
Yes.
So, like, for years, you could say Triple G was ducked, but he wasn't inactive in that time. He was still fighting, just not the people that we wanted to see him fight. So what surprises me is that, yes, Gary Russell's not fighting the people we want to see him fight, including last night.
Yes.
But I would still expect that you at least take a fight every 6 months to kind of stay sharp and on your game.
It kind of reminds me of what Adonis Stevenson was doing, and wasn't really fighting top-level competition, only fighting every so often, and then he gets in there against a big name, and he got hurt. I mean, literally. I mean, not just in the ring, but outside of the ring, and hopefully, I'm not saying that's going to happen to Gary Russell Jr., but, I mean, iron sharpens iron. And if he's not in there with the best, when he does come time to fight somebody like Leo Santa Cruz or an Oscar Valdez or one of the world champions at featherweight, he's probably going to get beat.
What do you think about him calling out Tank?
Yeah, well, I mean, this is what I mean. It's kind of a repeating narrative, right? So you get Gary Russell Jr., he's in here. He's made his annual appearance. He'll call out a big name. And the pattern has been he then hibernates for another year and takes an opponent who, we're not all that interested in. I think personally, I was interested in the Jojo Diaz fight when he fought Gary Russell. I think Jojo gave him a little bit of a fight in the early going there, and then Gary kind of figured it out as he went on. But the truth is, the names that we want to see him with are the Leo Santa Cruzes, they're the Tank Davises, they're all these guys. And I'm kind of spent on trying to figure out, like, is this going to happen or is it not going to happen? Especially because I'm not even going to see him for another year is what I expect. So, like, it's not that I don't like watching him. I think he's a great fighter, right? But
he's not a knockout artist.
No. But a lot of people, there are people who can have an appreciation for that still, and I'm one of them.
Yeah.
I don't think you have to knock people out to make fights entertaining.
Yeah.
I think that the things like the hand speed and the footwork that Gary Russell has a tendency to showcase, they can be equally entertaining.
Well, what if you get somebody that has the hand speed, the footwork, and the knockout power like the monster Inoue?
Which was another world champion.
Did he win? Did he win? Did he win the weekend, man? Was he the fighter of the weekend, or was it Wilder, man? Was it the monster, or was it Wilder? Because Inoue,
in real life, or in my opinion.
Yeah, in your opinion.
In my opinion, what Inoue accomplished was greater in terms of he was facing an opponent who was considered perhaps his greatest test to date.
Yeah.
And dispatched of him in 2 rounds, and he's going to almost certainly win the World Boxing Super Series, and that's no disrespect to Nonito Donaire. Nonito Donaire is a local guy. I've been watching him for a very long time. I've seen him fight live a bunch. But his path, when you just look at the path to the final of the World Boxing Super Series, the first one ended as a result of a back injury to his opponent who couldn't continue.
Burnett,
and it's a fight where Burnett is most likely going to go on and win that fight. He looked like he was in control in the early going of that fight. He gets back injury, can't continue. Nonito Donaire wins a championship, advances to the next round.
Tete gets hurt.
Tete gets hurt just a few days before the fight. They replace him on 3 days' notice. He knocks out a guy, he dominates a guy in a couple rounds, and now is advancing to the final against the monster. And it's unfortunate because
weight is this?
What are they?
Bantamweight,
122,
118.
Right? Or 118.
Bantamweight.
Sorry, yeah.
Oh, okay.
118. My bad. But the point is I imagine that this is not going to go well for Nonito Donaire.
He needs to forfeit this fight, man, and just hand the belt to him.
His path to it was not really a legitimate path in terms of tournament structure. Like, it's not what you would have expected in order to get into the final. Inoue, on the other hand, is each time facing people who are considered to be, this is his toughest test. This is his toughest test.
How many rounds?
And
he
went 2.
Blew him away. His last fight also against Payano, that was supposed to be
his toughest test.
That was supposed to be his toughest test. blew him away 1 round, right? Like it's like absolutely. And so I think he's making a solid case for his pound for pound status.
This guy's something else, man. He started out at light fly, won the belt, jumped over flyweight, went to super fly, won the belt there. Now he's at bantamweight, has the belts there. I mean, it's just this guy. He's in my top 3 pound for pound.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He's
in my top 3 pound for
He's
pound.
climbing that list, man.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
just because of the fact that he's already a 3 division champion with 15 fights?
Yeah.
I mean, this guy's something else. And honestly, I mean, I know the unified champion at Super Bantam, Danny Roman. He's
Yeah.
my friend.
Yeah.
But even if the monster would have moved up to 22, he would clean house at 22, man. That's how good this guy is. I mean, and it's he's scary good.
No comment.
How tall is he?
I have no comment. He's actually he's when you look at him, he's shorter. Like he's quite a bit shorter than Nonito Donaire even. And Donaire has fought at higher weight classes for sure. I mean, Donaire dropped 2-3 weight classes to get back down to this weight. He hadn't been at this weight since he was a young man, basically. And I think that he's surely going to walk away with the Muhammad Ali trophy when he faces Donaire. And from there,
He will be signing with Top Rank once he wins the WBSS.
Why do you say that?
Fans in the United States, I'm just giving you some inside information. He will be signing he will be signing with Top Rank. So fans here in the States, be on the lookout for the monster hitting the States real soon.
did they get you? Did Roy Jones give you that information?
No. Yeah, okay.
Oh, it's a long story. You guys
Yeah.
if you're a long time watcher, you'll get that joke.
What do you think about Lomachenko's last opponent?
Anthony Crawler. I think Lomachenko did what he needed to do. And I think Lomachenko gets a lot of criticism for Anthony Corolla, but you have to remember that wasn't the fight that was intended. That was never the fight that was intended. It was supposed to be the winner of Comey that went and advanced forward, but because Richard Comey broke his hand, who is a world titleist, so that was going to be a unification fight. Because he broke his hand, they had to replace him, and they found a top-ranked contender, which is really all you can do on short notice, is find a top-ranked contender and put them in there. In particular, I mean, a former world titleist, not just a top-ranked contender. So Lomachenko looked impressive, and I don't really understand the criticism that he's received as a result of that fight, because they publicly announced it's contracted. Whoever wins this fight, Richard Comey is going to move on and do these things. His only interest is unifying the belts, and that's good for us. Like, that's good for fans. I think the thing that's interesting is, like, most recently, for instance, he petitioned to fight for the WBC world title. That was vacated by Mikey Garcia. So Mikey Garcia was made champion emeritus. So for those of you who don't know, that means that Mikey Garcia at any time can return to the division and challenge for that title. It is his right to do that, right?
Correct.
So Mikey Garcia vacates the title. He's named champion emeritus. And Lomachenko petitions to fight for that title instead of 2 ranked contenders by the WBC, right? They permit it. So Lomachenko will now be fighting the number 1 ranked contender in the division, which is Luke Campbell, for the WBC world title. So he will have 3 belts, presumably. I'm assuming, of course, he beats Luke Campbell, which I think most people assume, right? And he gets criticized for that, too. All kinds of people come out and they criticize the WBC and say that's not right. But I think that's interesting, because we as boxing fans, what we complain about is not getting the one world champion. That's
Exactly.
all. That's all we ever want in any division. We want one world champion.
Let me stop you right there. I've seen a lot of complaints. I've seen it all over social media. I've seen it on Twitter. I've seen it on Facebook. I've seen it everywhere. Let me explain a little bit to boxing fans that don't understand. One of the criticisms that I was seeing is, how the hell is the WBC allowing Loma to fight for the title when he's not ranked? Okay.
No
understand
champion is
this.
ranked.
No champion is ranked by the WBC. If you have a title, IBF, WBO, WBA, if you have one of the other organizations' titles,
one of the 4 main ones.
of the 4 main ones, you will not be ranked by the WBC. That title became vacated by Mikey Garcia. His team petitioned, and the WBC granted him the opportunity to fight for that title. We want the best to be the champion. Well, you're going to see the best when Loma fights Luke Campbell. You know,
Yeah.
and there it is.
That's what we complain about in every division, don't we? We sit here all the time and we say there's too many world champions. It's too hard to follow. We wish there was just one world champion in a division.
Yeah.
A guy who is a world champion petitions and says, "I want that third belt. I want the third belt because I want to be undisputed."
Yeah.
It's agreed,
Yeah.
and then there's all kinds of criticism from boxing fans.
What do you think about all these promotional companies getting in the way of the actual boxing? Like you have Crawford over here for Top Rank, and then you got all the other welterweights over here with Al Heyman.
Yeah.
You know, and they can't make fights
And
because the
Matchroom.
promotional companies
And
are
Golden
getting
Boy,
in the way.
yeah.
So you're saying he's the unified, but then they can't fight because the promotional companies are getting in the way of the actual boxing match.
You know, there are times where an organizational, you know, a sanctioning body, I should say, actually steps in and has that fight. Kind of seen it with Gary Russell and JoJo. You know, you got a PBC fighter, Al Heyman fighter, and Gary Russell Jr. taking on a Golden Boy fighter. Leo and Carl Frampton. You know, that's when Carl Frampton was with Matchroom Boxing. Leo with PBC. I mean, it does happen. They do cross promotional lines. It doesn't happen as much as I think that fans would want it to happen.
It happens with Golden Boy and Al Heyman, but
Yeah.
how much does it happen with Top Rank?
You know, you don't see it very much. I mean, between Al Heyman and Al.
I think the truth
And,
is
Bob Arum.
you don't see it. Yeah, between Al and Bob, you really don't see it at all.
No.
Yeah.
Yes.
But in a lot of these cases, you're not seeing it in the fights that you want to see.
Yes.
And that's the problem. So it's not that they're not cooperating on certain fights. Like you look at Lomachenko and Jorge Linares, for instance, right? That was a cross-promotional fight. And the important thing is you see it with those fights, but the problem is you're not seeing it at welterweight and you're
Yes.
not seeing it at heavyweight.
Yes.
And that's the issue because those two divisions are the divisions where people want to see the titles cross-pollinated. We want to see
Yes.
the champions face
Yes.
the champions.
Yes.
And there was a period of time where you could even say that Al Heyman was hesitant to have champions under his own banner fight each other. So for a very long time, and I think the first time that you saw really two people at that level competing under Al Heyman is when we got Danny Garcia and Sean Porter, both who had come off of losses to Keith Thurman, but there was a belt on the line, right? So there was a vacant belt on the line for that one, and now that you're seeing, okay, well now we're going to have Errol fight Sean, and we're going to have Keith fight Pacquiao, and we're going to do this. You're going to start to see some of that cross-pollination. The one who ends up being left out, to your point earlier, is Bud Crawford, which is unfortunately the individual who is generally recognized as either the number one or number two
Yes.
in that division.
Yes.
So I think it's interesting, and now there's talk that Danny Garcia
And
is
Mikey
in
Garcia.
negotiation with Mikey Garcia at a welterweight fight.
Yes.
So I think we're going to start to see some of that at welterweight, but because all those fighters are actually under a singular banner, not
Yes.
because of cross-promotional things.
Yes.
And at heavyweight, it's just a matter of time. At heavyweight, I still believe firmly that it has to happen just by virtue of the fact that people will be leaving so much money on the table for some of
Yes.
these fights
Yes.
that it will marinate perhaps so long that we become disinterested in the way that
Yes.
Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao marinated, where
Yes.
we were just like, man, this is like 5 years too late. You remember
Yeah.
everyone said that? This
Yeah.
should have happened
Here's-
5 years ago.
But here's the thing. We see that, right? We see that as people that work in the boxing community, as boxing media, as people, like I said, that are in the sport every single day. So we say, okay, it over-marinated. But when you look at the numbers, what other pay-per-view sold 4.5 million like Manny Pacquiao
Yes.
and Floyd Mayweather? So we can say it over-marinates. The fight between Joshua and Wilder might not take place for another 2 years. I doubt it. I think it'll happen sometime in 2020. But even if it does, it's going to sell.
yeah.
It's going to sell. It's going to sell because they will sell this fight to the casuals like no other fight. You know, I mean, they'll sit
yeah,
there
big
and they'll
time.
make it.
Big time.
They'll have the 24/7s going. It'll be on every other commercial. Budweiser will have their pictures on cans. The shit'll sell.
Couple things
Yeah.
real quick. Shout out to Anthony Garcia of Iconic. Thanks for jumping on the chat, brother. Homeboy says Mikey Garcia, somebody else. I don't want to butcher your name. Do you want to take a shot at that name, Stax? You get everybody's name wrong anyway.
Cynthia can say it, man. She can say it.
But I appreciate your joining. He says Mikey Garcia is challenging himself now that he's a people's champion. He's definitely challenging himself. Absolutely,
yeah.
I agree.
Tescacoatl.
There you go. You got it.
Tescacoatl.
You got it.
Is that how you say it?
'Cause
Tescacoatl?
Danny-
Carlos. Orale. Carlos, that's a lot easier. So we just call him Los.
Carlos. Carlos, thank you, brother. I
Thanks,
appreciate
Carlos,
I appreciate you dumbing it down for me.
Can you imagine the statement that'll make if Danny knocks out
Mikey?
Mikey?
what it'll make to Spence?
Oh,
man.
That's true, actually. That does make a little bit of a statement to Spence
And
if he can
yeah,
knock him out.
Interesting.
The six-toe god.
I think they fought in the amateurs.
Who?
Mikey and Danny.
Yes,
Did
they did.
Yeah, they fought as amateurs. Yeah.
And so did they. So did Crawford, right?
Yes. Bud Crawford. I actually saw an interview with Mikey Garcia where he talked about a number of the welterweights that he's faced as amateurs.
Uh-huh.
And one of the things he did say is that he fought Danny Garcia. It was close, but he won. And then they asked him about, I think it was Ellie Sekback, who asked him about fighting Bud Crawford as an amateur, and Mikey said he'd kick my ass.
Hey, at least he was truthful about it, man.
Yeah. And it also, to be fair, we're talking at this point, they have to be talking about something that's 15 years ago. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it's not.
And they've developed a lot since
They've
then.
developed. It's the pro game. There's a lot of differences and stuff like that. So it's certainly not a guarantee. But
That's true.
Javante fighting a nobody. What do we think about that?
That's just like Lomachenko. He just fought a nobody.
Yeah.
But, hey, I mean,
it was a little bit
there's-
different.
There's
Yeah.
two times I've seen Loma fight. He fought the first time I went to his match. He fought a guy that just lost to Oscar Valdez.
Okay.
Oscar Valdez knocked him down,
Yeah.
and then Lomachenko fought him. And then this time, Crayola, however you spell his name,
Crolla. Yeah.
Corolla, yeah.
like Crayola.
No, a little bit different.
Corolla.
It's more like
Corolla.
it's more like Corolla, like the Toyota, but without the O. So it's
Oh,
just
okay.
Corolla.
Crolla.
Yeah,
Corolla.
yeah. He was knocked out.
Yeah.
He was. But again, he was a replacement opponent for the reigning world champion
Yes,
in that division.
But Teofimo Lopez was available.
Teofimo Lopez is available. That's true.
Yeah.
Well, actually, he had just fought in Dallas, right?
No.
He wanted to be on the card.
He was on, I think, a card in New York.
A card in New York. Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
he was a card in New York. Yeah.
and
Same card as Shakur Stevenson.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
his name is not coming up much in the
Who?
conversation.
Teofimo?
Teofimo.
And it probably won't because they're going to protect
Well-
their,
No,
their
it
money
is. They
fights.
put him into a tournament for Loma. So he's entered in a tournament.
There's no reason for him to participate in the WBC tournament. He'll
No.
go for the other belt. He's going to go for Comey's belt. I
Yeah.
imagine.
Actually, Richard Comey's going to be fighting at Temecula, the Pachanga Casino, against Ray Beltran.
Exactly. So Comey and
okay.
Beltran are going to fight.
Yeah.
And Teofimo Lopez will be in a title eliminator where the winner of that fight will get the winner
winner
of
of
Ray Beltran and Richard Comey. And then he will have the fourth belt in that division, and Lomachenko will go and fight Luke Campbell for the third belt
For the
in that
WBC,
division. So
correct.
they're taking a different route. They also gave him a path to the WBC belt. It's just a more challenging path because it's the title eliminator where I think he'd have to go through 2 levels and would have to ultimately probably fight Devin Haney.
So we probably won't see this for another couple years.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
But
and
the thing is, he's I don't know that he can hang at that weight for another couple years. He's a big dude.
Teofimo?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's going to be moving
Yeah,
up to
he's
40
like
pretty
5'8",
soon.
Yeah, like
but he wants Loma.
he does.
He
But
wants him now.
you know what? The young guys always say that about the current champions. They
Yeah,
say it
but
all the time. They're
He's a
like
different beast.
yeah, he is different. I agree. He is different. That's not anybody. Oh man, Teofimo is underrated. I think, dude. I've spoken on it many times on this show. That gentleman has everything that he needs to be a complete star
Yes.
in boxing. He's highly entertaining. He's highly athletic.
Yes.
He's not just fun to watch. I mean, the knockouts are just
He's a killer.
he's skilled.
Yes.
You know, an Olympian.
That in the last knockout, the fight before last with Magdaleno.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah, and his brother Jesse jumped in the ring, and the dad jumped in the ring. I think Theo would have knocked all their asses out, man. I'm just saying.
Jesse and Oscar used to practice at Jackrabbit.
Oh, they did?
Yeah.
Oh, right on.
right? When they was fighting, Manny Robles and them, they used to they was practicing there probably for a couple of months.
Yeah, because Manny used
They didn't have a gym.
they used to train out of the Rock.
Yeah.
There in Carson, and then train there a lot of Jackrabbit
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, before they got
Legends.
yes.
Before Legends opened up, yeah.
And then they I guess they got their own gym after that, and then Oscar and them left Manny.
Yeah. Real quick, Benny Castrone jumped on. He says Loma beats Teofimo. Loma beats Teofimo. Sorry.
Well,
And that's
And
I don't disagree.
talking about Teofimo,
I tell you what, the punching power changes everything. If you
Sure.
look at Linares knocked him down, and Teofimo is more of a beast
Then
than
Jorge Linares.
Jorge
is.
Linares when it
I
comes
agree.
down to punch power. He's more athletic. He moves a lot more. He's more poised in the pocket. He'll stay in the pocket, and it only with a guy like that, it only takes one punch to change the fight, and he has that punching power. And if you look at it, Lomachenko got touched up by Pedraza.
He did.
If you look at his eyes after the fight, both his eyes were black.
You know, there's a couple things that I think are interesting about that. One is, and I've said this before on the Jose Pedraza fight, Lomachenko dominated that fight. Now, sure, at the end of it, he looked human because he had black eyes from taking a constant jab from Jose Pedraza, where Lomachenko was coming off a shoulder surgery, was kind of hesitant to use the right arm and all these different things. And we look at that and we go, man, somebody was able to jab Lomachenko. And look at his face. He actually has swelling from jab. He dominated that fight. He put Jose Pedraza down. He schooled him almost. He won every single round of the whole fight. He's actually someone who is so good that when someone is able to just jab him consistently for 12 rounds, we look at it and we go, see, he's like, there it is. He's got his eyes blacked when he's fighting one-armed and still is able to put some guy down. Like
he showed weakness.
he showed weakness. I actually think that, like, and there's this narrative that forms around Loma, which is that he hasn't accomplished anything to be ranked one of the top pound-for-pound fighters, say, over the likes of someone like a Bud Crawford or particularly a Canelo. So what you'll hear people say is that Canelo deserves to be higher on that list just because of his resume, and that may be true. I'm not going to debate that because pound-for-pound is a completely subjective topic, and and we're talking about men who could not possibly compete against each other. So it's like, you know, sure, we can be rational about it, but here's the truth. He has done some remarkable things in his career, and his resume is not filled with scrubs. Like, first of all, he is one of the most accomplished, if not the most accomplished amateur in the history of the sport. Right? Like, the man is...
No, he is
he knows,
the most.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
is the most.
The
Only
most,
one loss in
exactly.
400 fights.
The most accomplished amateur in the history of the sport. He challenged for a world title in his second professional fight. So this is a man who has never had to fight more than 4 rounds, right? Now coming in and fighting 12 rounds to fight for a world title against Orlando Salido, who is himself a multiple world champion.
Who came in overweight.
Who came in overweight and was completely rugged and did things. So I understand he lost that fight, and that's the knock that everybody's going to say. But the truth of the matter is, Nicholas Walters was dope. He was like, he was awesome, right? I loved watching him fight. He is somebody. Guillermo.
Where is he?
Yeah, like, and he's gone. That's the thing. These people, they vanished, right? Like, Lomachenko beats them, and they're out of boxing. Guillermo Rigondeaux has barely recovered from losing, and people always bring up the size,
But he has
as
an
if,
excuse.
as it, yeah, like even, yeah, the hand,
His hand.
his hand was injured from not landing on anything. But the thing is, people will bring up the size as if Loma dominated that fight with his size. Right? Like Loma's leaning on him and pressuring him and pushing him back. That's not at all what happened. He's just dancing circles around him.
Exactly.
And outboxing.
Exactly.
He's just he just perfects his angles.
Yeah.
He knows how to stay in the pocket and slip punches and counter punch. It's like he's just ridiculous. His vision and timing.
He
is off the charts.
has real opponents on his list, and he has accomplished great things as a professional, remarkable things even. And so, like, you could say that Canelo belongs above him, and that's fine. Like, you know, I won't complain about it. But the idea that, you know, he hasn't really accomplished anything, or the he lost to Salido argument in his second professional fight is kind of like, that's enough of that. Relax. Like, stop it.
Yeah.
Stop it.
What do you think?
Where's
about
Salido now?
Stop
Like, Brent,
it.
you know, it's
What do
just
you
like,
think
come
about
on,
the
man.
comparison, the way Tank fought Pedraza versus the way Loma fought him.
Loma was coming off of surgery, man.
Well,
I mean,
no,
it's styles make fights.
That's fair. I think that's true. People are going to do that comparison, right? Because in the same way that we said people are going to compare Brezeale now because of he performed against both. But the truth is, that's not Loma's bag, right? Loma doesn't walk around knocking people out. That's not. He's death by 1,000 cuts. You know what I mean? He's touching you, and eventually he gets at you over a period of time. He's at so much so that there are people who, without even being hurt, like Nicholas Walters, who is not hurt,
will quit.
Decides that he's just done. He just doesn't want to fight anymore, right? It's actually like I'm going to take it way back. Musashi. You guys know Miyamoto Musashi? You ever read the Book of Five Rings?
Oh, okay.
You know the Warriors back in the day? You know?
Never read it, man.
You never read it? You guys got to take a look at it. Dude, they say that, he got so good at his craft that all he would do was defend attacks until people would just admit that he was better. He stopped sword fighting people. He was a samurai, and they would say that he got so good at the craft of sword fighting that rather than kill people, because he was tired of doing that,
he just let people know he would
just defend
easily.
Attacks and parry and do things so easily that they would be like, you know what, I can't hang, and that's exactly what Lomachenko does to these cats. Like, so the fact that he didn't go out there and blow Pedraza away, that's not what he does. He doesn't go out there and blow people away. He uses craft, right? Not power. He uses craft. And I was saying earlier, we were talking like what's more entertaining, craft. And I said some people can appreciate craft. I'm one of those people. I can watch it and be highly entertained by some of the things that he does.
I think that comes from his amateur background.
And his ballet dancing.
Yeah, a lot of things.
No, seriously. I mean, his dad had him in ballet for all those years. Look at that footwork, man.
In the amateurs, you get used to throwing multiple non-hard punches.
Dude, let me take a second here. Michael Dutchover jumped on. Shout out Michael Dutchover. Michael Dutchover was just on
Showbox, the new generation.
Like a co-main event.
Yeah.
And put in work, finished in the first round, his opponent.
Roseki Cristobal.
Yeah. And if you guys didn't get a chance to check that out, you should try to. A lot of the local Thompson boxing guys, Saul Sanchez, who's been on the show, Michael Dutchover, Ruben Torres, Ruben Villa. Yeah. All those cats fought, and they all 4 for 4, man.
Yeah.
They went 4 for 4. So congratulations to you, brother. I appreciate you jumping on.
And that's how it starts on the way to the world titles, man. It starts on Showbox the next generation.
Showbox the next generation.
I remember when another Thompson fighter, man. Now he's a unified super bantamweight champion.
Let me think. Who would that be?
Who would it be? Daniel Roman.
Oh, Danny.
He goes on the Showbox, fights in Atlantic City.
A fight he's supposed to lose.
This fight he's supposed to lose, gets the big W.
He was the opponent. Yeah.
I mean, he came in as the opponent to Adam Lopez and comes away with the victory. But, yeah, man, the West Texas Warrior.
West Texas Warrior. Shout out to Midland,
Texas.
Another good fight. What'd you think about the J-Rock Hurd fight?
Oh, man, that blew me away. I was actually with Michael Dutchover that night. We had just watched this fight. Yeah, we had just watched the replay. We were at a buddy's house in Huntington Beach. My buddy Jeff Joyner, shout out to Jeff, man. We were at his house. We had just ate some pizza, sitting there watching the fight. And I'm telling all of Michael's family, because his family's there, his brothers are there, mom, dad, and I'm telling them, watch this fight, man. I said, Hurd's going to take care of J-Rock. Probably quick knockout. I don't think it lasts 5 rounds. Boy, was I wrong.
That guy, man, J-Rock. I started telling all the kids at gym, you have to watch that fight. That guy J-Rock was digging.
Yeah, he was digging.
The whole fight.
See, now, I didn't expect a quick knockout.
He wanted it.
They all want it.
No, I mean, like, he really, wanted the... I know they all want it, but I mean, like...
Everybody wants it the same.
I don't know. No, I doubt that.
They all want it. They don't necessarily put in the work for it.
You could tell he learned from the Charlo experience. Yeah. And he implemented a lot of them slip uppercuts that he was doing. He implemented a lot of that in his fight, and he's a way better boxer than when he was fighting back then.
Yeah. I think that the thing that's interesting is Jarrett Hurd, to me, I did not expect a quick knockout, mostly because his style is more one of attrition. Over time, he applies pressure, and some people can deal with it for longer than others. So it really depends on how long you can deal with that amount of pressure. So you look at Erislandy Lara, and he dealt with it for about 6 rounds.
Well, see, see, here's the reason I thought Hurd would finish him. Here's the reason I thought, Hurd would finish J-Rock is because of the style of fight that J-Rock fights. I knew he was going to come forward and put pressure, so I'm thinking to myself, what's going to happen is he's going to get caught. he's going to get caught and he's going to go down and it's going to be over. That's the reason, not because necessarily of the style that hurt fights, because but just the fact that I knew that J-Rock was going to pressure him, and I figured he'd get caught. And once he got caught, the fight was going to be over.
Yeah, and I think the thing that is, as soon as you see him go down, because he looks, even in his last fight, Jarrett Hurd took some clean shots against Erislandy Lara. He took clean shots for the better part of 6 rounds. Took some clean shots in his last fight. So he's taking some clean shots, and you look at it and you go, yeah. He's going to get hit because that's what he does. He gets hit a lot. He's kind of got some defensive liabilities.
Walks people down.
Yeah, he's got some defensive liabilities, but it's really, again, a style of attrition. But the moment you see him go down, you're like, oh, shit. Right? Because once he goes down, you're like, oh, so he's really putting hurt on you. He's not just hitting you.
Yeah,
right?
He's hurting
like you're
he's
hurt.
Digging.
And now you're kind of out of options. Right,
yes.
because your style is to push through that
Yes.
and discourage people. Right,
Yes.
your style
Yes.
to get through the area
to show you
where
the bigger man,
to show you,
that
that I'm bigger and I'm stronger and that you can hit me and it doesn't matter. I'm going to keep coming no matter
Yes.
what you do. I'm going to keep coming.
like
Once
Triple G does.
Yeah, and once you get knocked down, you're like, well, there goes that, right? Because like obviously, if you just keep walking into him, he's going to hit you.
Yeah.
And from there, you just know the moment he gets knocked down, that's trouble because he's
Yes.
not going to suddenly grow a defensive mindset. He's
Yes.
not going to suddenly start covering up the right way and doing all these things. And I think I mentioned this before. It's actually like for the long-term health of Jarrett Hurd, he's got to get on that defense a little bit more.
Yes.
He's got to do, and I understand it's not
Yes.
his style, but you got to get on it a little bit more. You cannot
Can't
get
take
hit so
that
much.
punches like that.
Like even if you were able to do it against Erislandy Lara and stuff like that, there are
Yeah.
people who punch a lot harder than Erislandy Lara.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, like, bro, you have your health to think of for a
Yes.
very long time to come. So like you can't just take clean shots.
Exactly.
They got to get on that. They
Yeah.
got to get on that.
Because J-Rock was sitting down in his punches and he was digging in. And they also talked about him having a new strength and conditioning coach.
Yeah.
And that made whatever it was, it showed because he did it from the beginning to the end.
To the end,
He
yep.
kept the intensity and he was showing a lot of creativity and counter punches was phenomenal. I was a new fan of J-Rock after seeing that. I looked at it and I said, man, this guy can compete with any of the top level competition fighting like the way he fought that night.
I should mention also there was another world title. I think we talked about 4. We talked
Joshua
about 4.
Taylor?
Oh, no, I guess we only talked about 3 because
Yeah.
we never got on Joshua Taylor.
Yeah, Joshua Taylor against Ivan Bronchek.
Joshua Taylor against Ivan Bronchek, which was another very sort of competitive
Yeah,
fight.
it was a very competitive fight. That's one of the
But I
fights
think Joshua
watched.
Taylor clearly won.
Yeah,
Right?
and then you had
Yeah.
Regis Prograis in the ring afterwards for, getting pumping up the final.
Dude, have you guys watched Regis Prograis do the post-fight interviews?
Yes.
It's the greatest thing ever.
For real.
Dude.
And then you watch the fight and I'm like, okay.
He was all the stuff he says, like what they asked him if he cares who wins or who he'd rather face, and he said he'll fight them both in the same night, 6 rounds each, and he'll come out 2-0.
For real. For real.
I was like, dude.
Then the lady asked him, he was like, when did you know you was gonna win? And he said as soon as he signed the contract.
Yeah.
As soon as he signed the
As soon as
contract,
he signed the contract.
this guy, man.
That kind of personality is great for boxing fans.
It
It's
is,
great.
and I was telling Cynthia, I was telling my wife, I said, hey, the thing is with him is like he's not just underrated, but like he's kind of flying under the radar because a lot of fans don't know who Regis is.
Yeah.
And the reason I tell you that is because after the Canelo fight, the Canelo Triple G fight, he was just like hanging out, just sitting on a light post, just by himself, just watching the crowd go by. Nobody even knew who this kid was.
He didn't even really have the DAZN exposure
Yeah.
yet at that point in time. Yeah, so that's all relatively new.
Yeah, and he was just sitting out there, just hanging out. And I'm like, hey, what's up, Regis? Hey,
Is
what's
he
up?
with
We just
DAZN now?
Well, he's fighting the World Boxing Super Series, and the World Boxing Super Series is on DAZN.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So basically, he will fight the winner of Josh Taylor, he'll fight Josh Taylor because Josh Taylor won a world championship last night in
okay.
his semifinal matchup.
Oh, that's what he was talking about.
Yeah. So in his semifinal matchup, Josh Taylor won in a really entertaining fight. He dropped his opponent 2 times. They were trading shots the whole time. It was a busy fight, kind of a fan-friendly fight, where there's shots being traded, but there's also risk. I actually think risk is like one of the key elements to being fan-friendly. It's not just trading shots. Like you look at some fights like, Leo Santa Cruz and sometimes those guys are they're really going at it, but you don't feel the risk. You don't feel that there's danger. You just expect it to go 12 rounds that way.
Yeah.
But this one, there was risk and there was danger, particularly because he dropped his opponent 2 times. And so, like at any point in time, so it kind of keeps you on the edge of your seat. So I think it's a very fan-friendly fight. If you guys subscribe to DAZN, go back and check that out. And then, of course, the last world title of the 5 world titles that were on the line this weekend was Billy Joe Saunders.
Oh, that's right, Billy Joe.
Billy Joe competing for the vacant WBO 168-pound world title.
Super middle.
Super middle. So he went up, and of course he puts on a Billy Joe Saunders-esque performance where he wins virtually every round of the fight, bar one where he did get landed on and shook a little bit.
That was Zurdo's title.
What's that?
Zurdo's title that he.
The title that was vacated by Zurdo Ramirez.
Yeah.
Oh, because Zurdo went up to 175.
175.
175, yeah.
175. So
And boy, there's some monsters at 75 for Ramirez.
Yeah.
Jesus.
And 168.
And I've heard stories about Ramirez sparring with Bivol, and some of those little sparring lessons that went on there at a wild card. And,
Oh, really?
yeah, so you got Bivol up there. You have who's the other champ? Vodzik. And then you have
Bostic,
Sergey Kovalev.
Kovalev
What'd
at
you hear?
175.
What'd you
I
hear?
just heard they went to town. Like it was straight wars between Bivol and Ramirez.
Oh, yeah.
Heard Bivol stopped him a couple times. I've heard they went back in, and where Bivol after 2 or 3 rounds said, "No, I don't want any more." So it kind of back and forth between Ramirez and Bivol.
Yeah, Ramirez is no joke. Zurdo, that dude throws beautiful body shots.
Yeah. So definitely, it's one of the weight limits to watch. The 75, man. One of the division limits. One of the divisions to watch, man.
But what do you think now that Billy Joe is a title holder at 168? There's a lot of interesting fights for Billy Joe at 168 because Caleb Smith is at 168.
Oh, yes.
And
Canelo can move up.
he already has a title.
Yeah, he
has a regular title. He has
Caleb.
what's it?
Caleb.
No, Canelo.
Canelo
has a WBA, the regular.
The WBA regular title
Yeah, but
at
he's not going to
168
stay.
pounds.
He's got too many fights at 160.
He does have a lot of fights
Yeah.
at
I think he
168.
just went up and stole that one just because he wanted. He don't want to go up there. Everybody
you don't
up
wanna-
there is like 6 something.
You don't want to fight Caleb Smith and
Nah.
Benavidez and all those guys.
Nah.
But so there's some interesting opportunities for Billy Joe Saunders now, who even put out there if Triple G was ever interested in becoming a titleist in 2 different weight divisions, he would love the opportunity to fight Triple G at 168.
That'd be a good fight.
I think
it'd be a
fight
real
too.
good fight.
Yeah.
I mean, styles make fights, and
And he's a good mover.
yeah,
He moves
and
a lot.
good jabber.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that'd be an interesting fight between Triple G and Billy Joe.
I'd like to see it.
Oh yeah, so
I mean, I would have liked to have seen
but
it at
then-
160 as well, but
I think he was. What about the guy from New York that he was supposed to fight before he tested positive?
who was supposed to fight?
Billy Joe.
Oh, before Billy. Oh, Demetrius
Andrade?
Andrade. Yeah, Demetrius. Yes,
Boo-boo.
some people say Andrade and some people say Andrade.
Yeah,
Andre.
yeah. I have a
Yeah.
cousin whose last name is spelled the same way, and she pronounces it Andrade,
Yeah, but like,
and then he pronounces it Andrade. So it's
I thought so, but
Yeah.
I don't know because people go both ways. Even
Yeah.
the commentary crew goes both ways.
Yeah.
Anyways, yes, he
Boo-boo.
was Dimitri Boo Boo Andrade was the one who.
He's another avoided fighter.
I think honestly, I'm thinking he's gonna get Canelo, man. I'm thinking they'll move the September 16th fight with Triple G. I think they'll and let Canelo get a chance at all the belts, man, and let
Well,
him fight Boo Boo.
I think it's interesting because apparently Eddie Hearn was quoted as saying after the fight, the previous fight with Daniel Jacobs, Canelo said, "Who have you got for me next?" Is what he said to Eddie that night, and Eddie said, "There's 2, Caleb Smith and Demetrius Andrade. Those are the 2 fights that we have for you next."
Smith, who?
Caleb.
Caleb Smith. So he's the 168-pound champion that won the World Boxing Super Series. So he's a WBC diamond belt holder, but he holds also 2 world titles for the other sanctioning bodies. So I think Billy Joe just won WBO. So the other Caleb has 2.
Somebody says who wins, Canelo or Andrade? Canelo, man. I think Canelo beats him.
Benny.
He's a lefty, and he's fast, and he's got a lot of experience in amateurs as well. That's going to be a good fight.
I still think Canelo beats him.
All I say it's going to be a good fight.
I think Canelo, outside of even now, Triple G in the situation he is in, which is slightly older than he was before, I think Canelo beats anybody at 160.
He's in
anybody.
Anybody.
He's in a zone.
Yeah.
He's at the peak. He's peaking right now. This is
And
Canelo's time.
Yeah.
Charlo's been trying to fight him for a long time. I think they pay them guys. You heard that they pay fighters
Step
not to fight
aside money.
them. Step
Yeah,
aside money.
step aside
Yeah.
money.
I wouldn't mind some step aside money.
Yeah, when they're mandatory. So I mean, one of the Charlos, for instance, had the WBC silver belt for a while, which does not make you the mandatory.
No.
It's just a path to the world title.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
The heir apparent, if you will. But like, for instance, Deontay Wilder fought last night. His mandatory was Dominic Brezeale, but Dominic Brezeale does not have the silver belt. Dillian White is the silver belt holder, and he has been since 2017.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that those guys, sometimes the mandatory contenders are paid to step aside for these other fights. In fact, that's what Nancy Rodriguez was talking about when she came on to the show. But to be honest, they don't want it. They can't get a Canelo that way. No,
Nobody, man.
They can't get at him. Like, the truth is, I'm not. If you guys have watched the show before, this is the first time I'm really doing this on Facebook. This is normally done on YouTube.
Correct.
So if you guys have watched the show before, you'll know I'm not like a Canelo sympathizer. And for a long time, I was actually very critical of Canelo, and I do feel as though he lost at least one of the fights with Triple G. The first one in particular, I thought he clearly lost, which I think most people think at this point in retrospect. But what he is doing right now, he's
improved the whole.
He just
lot.
looks like remarkable.
Looks like a Mexican Mayweather.
Yeah, like, and you know what's
With
funny
is
power. He gets a lot of criticism for it.
Yeah.
I noticed this is that, like, you go through the social media comments and stuff like that, because these are not like big mix-up fights where he's in exchanges and like trading with people, and they're not wars. Like, Danny Jacobs was not a war; it was a tactful fight.
Yeah.
Yeah, they showed a clip where Jacobs missed like 15 punches in a row.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So like, it was a tactful fight. People don't like it.
No.
They don't like it, man. So he's getting more criticism now than I'm even used to. But I'm like not on the bandwagon, but what I am saying is at some point, you have to recognize what is happening in the moment. You have to recognize, game recognize game. And I have to look at it at this point and say, you know what, man, he's accomplishing great things against great fighters. This is actually something that's interesting. Let me pose this to you guys, because Teddy Atlas, who has a podcast also, you guys should listen to Teddy Atlas' podcast. He said very recently that Canelo is a good fighter. He's very good, but he's not one of the greats or on a trajectory to be one of the greats. And the reason is because, particularly with Danny Jacobs, the Danny Jacobs fight is the fight he used as an example. He thought that was one where Canelo could have put it away, that Danny Jacobs was on the cliff. He was ready to go. And he does not have any doubt, paraphrasing, that someone like Marvin Hagler would have put that fight in the books without, Canelo, or without Danny Jacobs, I should say, rebounding and getting sort of splitting that last half of the fight. And for that reason, he doesn't see Canelo as a great. So do you think Canelo will be an all-time great?
I think he already is.
I mean, he has 50-something fights. He only got one loss, right?
Here's the thing. Teddy can break it down.
Why can't you?
Teddy can break it down, man. He can break it down he can break down the sweet science. As the professional he is in the sport for the years he's been around, he can break it down and he can give his opinion, and that's okay. I mean, he has his right to his opinion, but you have to understand what makes a boxer who he is the fans. And Canelo is the type of fighter right now that has the whole country of Mexico behind him now.
But in the beginning,
he didn't. And that's right. And that's the reason. In the beginning, he didn't. I remember going into that first Triple G fight. There was so many Mexicans that were going for Triple G and not Canelo.
Oh, yeah.
And it just seems like little by little.
And Triple G won. No.
Yeah. And the tide's turning, man. He will be, if not already, will be considered one of the Mexican greats. I know ESPN Deportes recently put a picture of the two best Mexican fighters. It was Gallo Estrada and somebody else, and it wasn't Canelo, right? It wasn't Canelo, and boy, did they catch some shit over that, man.
But the only part that's going to get him is the stake.
No, actually,
the
I
carne
don't
asada.
think that's the only part. I actually think that he has a few things that tarnish his reputation that are not entirely his fault. Now that one is his fault. You can't blame anybody else for consuming, something that's going to result in a positive test.
Yeah.
So certainly that will tarnish his reputation. Some other things that I think tarnish his reputation is consistent, what I'll call suspect scoring in certain fights where you look at it and
like
you go,
Lara?
like if you think he beat Lara, that's fine. But the fact that you think he won like every round is peculiar, right?
Yeah.
And when that becomes a pattern where you look at the Floyd Mayweather fight and you're like, okay, he loses virtually every round of the fight, but one judge has it a draw. And then against Lara again, right? He gets a favorable decision against Triple G. The draw was a favorable decision. Triple G probably won 8 rounds of that fight. And you look at it, and there's this pattern, and what happens is because it's built, and that has nothing to do with Canelo. He doesn't judge, right? Canelo doesn't judge the fight. That's other people doing that.
Yes.
And in fact, if he had won the fights just by a small margin, it would not have been as controversial.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
It's the fact that there's always this one sort of standout card that now creates conspiracy theorists.
Yes.
Right? So people in boxing look at it and they try and come up with a rationalization for it, and they come up with the first thing that pops in their head, which is like, judges were bought for this. Like Golden Boy did this, and they come up with all these conspiracy theories. And whether you subscribe to that or not, it's not really my place, and I don't really like giving an opinion on it because I have no way of knowing what causes that. I know it's peculiar. I understand why people would get frustrated by it. I am personally frustrated by it when you hear a bad scorecard. But at the same time, at the end of the day, that will tarnish his reputation in the eyes of some boxing fans, even though he has nothing to do with it.
Yes.
It doesn't have anything to do
That's
with
true.
it, right?
That's true.
So I think the scorecards is one. Obviously, the positive clenbuterol test is one. There was a point in time where I would have told you his opponent selection was hurting his legacy, particularly around the area where he's fighting like Amir Khan and Josecito Lopez and some of these names were like people who never even competed at his weight class before, competing for his titles. But I think that's the criticism where you have to go, if you're someone like me who is critical of his past performances, you have to go, I'm going to take that one now, and it goes out the window, right? Like in the past, sure, I was critical. You didn't rematch Erislandy Lara when a lot of people thought he won. You were fighting smaller men. You were doing all these things. But now you're fighting Triple G. You're fighting Daniel Jacobs. And these are the best people who are available in the division, right? So you're doing things that are challenging yourself. And I think I can't give that criticism anymore. And that's why I would say I'm coming around. I'm coming around to it.
Yes.
You know?
I always loved the way Canelo fought.
Yeah. Yeah, the truth is, the guy looks like he puts just a little something extra on every punch he delivers. Every punch he delivers looks like it's just got purpose.
Yes.
Other fighters don't deliver every punch with purpose. Canelo, when he throws that combination, man,
Turns them over.
Yeah, he's turning those over.
So here it is. It's basically what they're saying is Gallo Estrada and Brezeale are the two best Mexican fighters out there right now. And boy, did they catch
That's disrespectful, bro.
Did they caught some
believe
heat. And
that
that was the ESPN out of Mexico City that said that they said that they had taken a vote amongst Mexican fans.
They're on that Juan Manuel Marquez stuff right now.
Basically said, they didn't even have Canelo in it. They were like, the two best fighters are Gallo Estrada and Brezeale.
Wow.
So, that kind of blew me away coming out of Mexico. But, I mean, I still think he'll be considered one of the
to
greats.
each his own.
Right.
To each his own.
Yes.
Man.
Who did you admire in terms of boxing? Like, as someone who's an enthusiast, I'm sure there were certain people who, as you were coming up or getting involved in boxing, or you said, I think your father used to box, right? So aside from your father, did you have other people who you like to watch a lot?
Marvin Hagler. Sugar
Oh,
Ray
okay,
Leonard,
so the middleweights.
Thomas Hearns,
You're the middleweight guy.
Berto Duran.
Yeah.
Yeah. Chavez. My dad actually sparred with Marvin Hagler.
Oh, yeah? That's
Nice.
it.
He said he spun his headgear around.
Oh,
My
wow.
dad had these big old fat fingers. He had big hands, but and he also fought like the champion. He used to spar with the champion that they had over there in Rhode Island. He's a popular champion. Vinny Paz, I think it was.
Vinny Paz,
Yeah, Vinny Paz.
He said he used to knock him out. Even my cousin said he used to knock him out during the spar matches, and a lot of guys wanted to sign my dad. But my dad was only interested in the money that he was getting from sparring so he can go get a drink.
Oh, I got you.
So
But those are so you had some good names up there in terms of all-time middleweights.
yeah,
It's
Where I guess Canelo is not now, according to
that's
Teddy
the
Atlas.
era.
No.
That's
Yeah.
the era that I
That-
was up against.
yeah, that's that fight right there, man. The Hagler-Hearns fight, April 15th, 1985. I still remember. That's the day that I started watching boxing, like really got into it. I had seen
Yeah.
fights but never paid attention till
Yes.
that day. And once I seen that fight, man,
yeah.
at Caesar's Palace,
Wow.
that turned me into a fan.
Is the
Oh,
one
yeah.
that put it in your heart?
Yeah.
Put boxing in your heart?
Yeah.
They went at it, digging in. Like 3 rounds of the best 3 rounds you ever
Oh.
want to
I still
watch.
remember mine too. I remember the fight that put boxing into my heart. You know what it was?
You and Landeros 3
No.
weeks ago?
It was Roy Jones
No.
Jr. versus Clinton Woods.
Oh,
Do you
Okay.
remember that?
No.
Oh, yeah.
but
Okay, it's not it's not a big high profile fight, but what happened was I had watched boxing for a very long time.
Yeah.
Because my uncle was the ring announcer for foreign boxing and stuff, so it was in my mind. And then I watched the pay-per-view in 2002, Mike Tyson, Lennox Lewis. You were talking about it earlier, right? I watched that pay-per-view and was like, okay, I dig this. I'm starting to really like this. And then a few months later in September, I think that fight was like in June, and then in September of 2002, Roy Jones Jr. fought Clinton Woods, and he rapped his way out to the ring. You've never seen that?
Yeah,
like
I
he
remember that.
literally,
Oh, yeah.
he
Oh,
literally
yeah,
had the
yeah.
headset on,
Yeah.
and he gave a concert on his way to the ring, doing his own music and stuff like that. And I was
and
like,
they still use some of his songs.
yeah, and I was like big time into hip hop culture and stuff like that
Yeah.
back then. I was like in high school, and so I watched this dude who comes out, gives a rap concert, then goes into the ring, knocks the dude out in 7 rounds because it's Roy Jones Jr. and he's like in his prime and everything like that. And that was the one that I was like,
And-
I'm gonna start watching this guy. This is the guy I'm gonna watch. And from there on, I was,
He was
got
playing
into it.
full court games of basketball
before
his match.
yeah, before his
Yes.
fights.
Like literally, the guy was phenomenal.
Man.
That was the one that sold me. It was Roy. Roy got me.
Nice. And then I remember after that, for me, I think watching my favorite fighter of all time when he fought Chiquita Gonzalez. And it turned out to be a war. One of the greatest fights ever. And it just so happened that it was one of my favorite fighters fighting that fight, at Michael Carbajal.
Yeah.
Remember, I wasn't Mexican enough, so I was going for the Mexican American when all my paisa uncles and my grandpa and everybody from Mexico was going for Chiquita Gonzalez, and I was the only one going for Carbajal, because he was me, man. He was a Mexican American that didn't really talk too much Spanish, that was from the States, but he was still Mexican. The Mexicans didn't like him, and it was like, go do it. Yeah, I got knocked down twice and came back to win, and boy, was I a happy camper, man.
Yeah. Hagler, when I watched him fight the Beast Bulgabi, and I seen how he just walked through that storm and just wore him down, and then just took his heart out.
You know what I think is interesting? I always hear this. So earlier I was talking about nostalgia and how people make these predictions or say things because of nostalgia, not because of truth, right?
Yeah.
But one of the things that I hear a lot is people who are like, they couldn't even beat second-rate fighters of this generation. And that name comes up for people like Canelo. Well, like if someone says Canelo could beat Marvin Hagler or something like, you'll hear other people be like, they couldn't even beat the second-rate fighter and this like the Beast, like all this. Like they wouldn't even be able to beat David Tua.
like
like heavyweight.
Like Sugar Ray.
Yeah.
The way he fought when he fought back then. These guys were phenomenal. Like their combination. If you go back and you look at some of the highlights on their combinations, these guys were fighting 15 rounds.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I mean, just to imagine, these guys are tired at 12.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're tired
Well,
of
to be fair,
yeah.
fighters don't pick how many rounds they're fighting. It's not like fighters decided, you know what, this life is too hard for us. What we're going to do is we're going to cut the rounds down to 12 because we want to make it easier.
No.
We realized as a society, the sanctioning body looked at it and said, this is dangerous. People are being dehydrated. They're going, they're fighting, and they took the rounds down to 12 for the safety of the fighters. So I think sometimes we can't be like, there's this idea where like those guys were tougher because, they fought 15 rounds. They were tough. The men who are participating today, guys like Anthony Joshua, are world-class athletes.
Yeah.
World-class athletes. If he had to go fight 15 rounds and was training for 15 rounds and was doing all these things, he would be able to go fight 15 rounds. He doesn't do it because today we say, no, that's silly because we don't want people to die.
Yeah.
So let's take it down.
Yeah.
As an example, okay. It went from 15 to 12 after the Dooku Kim fight
Yeah, who
against
died.
Boom Boom Mancini,
Yeah.
right? I'm gonna grab this bottle of water real quick. So imagine a brain in this bottle of water here, and every time it gets hit, it shakes, right?
Yeah.
Because you have liquid that surrounds the brain,
Yeah.
right? So these fighters that are dropping weight and losing water
Dehydrated.
weight, they get dehydrated. They lose that liquid that's around the brain. So when it's in there and you don't have all that protection around that brain, every time it gets hit and it's shook, it's just hitting straight against the skull. You know, so after so
Which
many
is called
rounds,
a concussion.
a concussion,
Yeah.
exactly. So after so many rounds of getting beat, that's where the bleeding on the brain starts.
Oh, okay.
And that's why it went from 15 to 12. It's not the one punch that will
Yeah.
kill somebody.
Yeah, you know,
it's
the
the
thing that-
accumulation of your brain just hitting your skull, and it's the accumulation of that, and that's why it went from 15 to 12. That's why, you know, and like you said, it's not because of the
Yeah,
athlete
fighters
now.
didn't decide that
Yeah,
they
it wasn't a
that it should
fighter
be
that
12.
decided it. You know, it's just an accumulation of people getting beat,
Yeah.
getting hit in the head
There was,
so damn
there was
much.
no fighters union that sat down and said, "We're working way too hard here, guys."
And again,
We
during
gotta cut it down.
that during that same time in the 80s, that's where you went to the weigh-in from the day before instead of the morning of, because a lot of fighters were weighing in the day of the fight, going into these fights dehydrated.
Now that's
You know,
where
so
people start dying.
Now you have the WBC that has the 30-day, they have the 7-day, and now what they're doing is making sure that a fighter the day of the fight isn't coming in more than 10% over his weight, because if you come in more than 10% over your weight, what they're saying is maybe you should be fighting in a different weight class, because you're hurting your body too much to be dropping that much weight. You know, so
Yeah. And
there's
the
a lot
IBF,
of
I think, already
science
has a
behind it.
similar clause in case for their title, which is actually why when Danny Jacobs fought Triple G, he was not competing for that title because he blew their weight clause. He weighed in beyond what the IBF would allow
Did the
him
same
to.
shit with Canelo.
Yeah, okay. The IBF waives that clause for unification fights, which means when he was fighting Canelo,
That was Canelo's.
that was Canelo's contractual stipulation. That
Correct.
was not the IBF. So all this stuff, all the Canelo people who are going to say, "Oh no, the IBF made
That's the
Danny Jacobs."
benefit of
Not during the
No,
unification match,
not in the
suckers.
unification
That's
fight.
the benefit of being the A side.
That's
That's
true.
right.
You get to put that stuff. Hey, that's true for that's kind of stuff happens all the way back to Sugar Ray Leonard, right?
Yep.
Sugar Ray Leonard put all that stuff in the Hagler contract coming out, the
Yep.
size of the ring,
Yep.
all that, all that stuff was in the contract.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sugar Ray knows what's up. That stuff's not new. But yeah,
People don't realize that the benefit of being the A side. Like literally, every time I go to the fights and I see the B side come out, it almost feels like a fish being fed to the big fish.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of times it is, particularly on what was used to be considered sort of the untelevised portion of the card. You can go down and look at red corner, blue corner, and you could see these guys are cannon fodder, right? Like they're being lined up for these future stars
Yes,
here.
yes.
Yep.
You know.
Exactly.
Every now and then, that little fish eats the big fish.
Every once
Yeah.
in a while, you know, it seems like lately it seems like the Golden Boy matchmaker's been really putting some good matches together. Some of these Golden Boy guys have been losing.
They had some
a
fights
lot
in
lately.
Indio on Thursday.
Thursday.
Yeah, some good fights in Indio on
Yeah,
Thursday.
another kid
actually.
from Westside Boxing getting beat, man. Nava,
Yeah.
he got beat. I mean, there's it happens. It happens. I think a couple of the fights went to split decisions.
Yeah.
I think the last two, right?
Yeah, it was good fights on Thursday.
Good fights on Thursday night. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Definitely. But yeah, so that's it. That was the 5 world title fights that happened this weekend, I guess, from Friday to now.
Yeah.
5
So-
world title fights. So we had Deontay Wilder, Billy Joe Saunders, Josh Taylor, Naoya Inoue, and Gary Russell Jr.
There you go.
Mm.
So
Busy.
Busy.
Busy
Big weekend of
weekend.
boxing.
Boxing was losing for a while, and now it's back full strength.
We've talked about that, man. I mean, there's boxing Thursdays, Friday, Saturday, Sunday this
For
week.
real.
And I seen something on a tweet, and I didn't open it up, saying that they're gonna start having boxing like on Wednesdays now.
Yes.
And
You know,
5
it's-
world titles,
There was
right? So
5
not just
world-
that, there were 5 world title fights.
They were saying MMA was going to take over, but now look.
MMA ain't doing shit.
I'm not a hater. I think
I'm not a hater
I think
either,
they could
but-
coexist. They could both exist. They don't have to be compared directly to
I-
each other.
I
I'm
think-
tired of people getting choked out.
I think the
going to the
UFC
ground, hugged.
trying to monopolize it killed it. You have, you got the Combates America, and you have Bellator and a few other little bodies now, but it just seems like UFC. I think they shot themselves in the foot when they monopolized it. I think
Yeah.
they could have went about it a little bit different, and they monopolized it. They don't even allow the fighters to wear patches on their trunks or to put the banner out anymore.
Really?
They can only wear trunks that say Reebok on it. They're not getting paid as much
But
as the
the truth
boxers
is,
are.
there's pros and cons to that, because in boxing, we have so much division, right? So, like in UFC, there's at least one centrally controlled organization, and it creates a consensus around who the real champions are. You look at it and you go, the UFC champions, those are the real champions, right?
Yes.
Now, in boxing, the criticism that we take is there's too much division. You guys have these
Yes.
network problems where fighters can't compete against
Yes,
each other. You
yes.
have 5 world champions in every division, 4 world champions in every division. You can't keep track of who the champion is. You don't know who the best is. So there's some benefit to having one entity.
Yes.
And the truth of the matter is, big fights happen in the UFC because all they do is say, you're under contract, you guys are the best, and you fight, right? And that's what you go and you do.
That's
right?
what
So,
needs to happen. The commissioner or something should step in, and they should never, the network should never be able to override the actual and prevent boxing from taking place.
But they do, and that's
And that's
sad,
the-
man.
that-
It's
is.
sad because I've seen shit on that before, man. Where HBO, and that's probably why they're not around anymore. Trying to tell somebody, no, you're not going to fight this guy for the title because we don't like his style, and it's not going to bring in ratings. So we're going to bring this guy. Then the sanctioning body will just say, well, we're not gonna allow you to fight him.
Yes.
Either you fight on HBO against that guy for the money and lose the title, or you fight the guy we're telling you to and not be on TV.
What happens is
So
that
it's just-
HBO wants to air it, and the other one wants to air it, but that guy's the A side, so you got to fight on whatever they're fighting on, DAZN or whatever it is. So
Yeah.
HBO is not going to get a bigger piece of the pie, and he's going to be on that side.
That's why a lot of these a lot of times when it goes to purse bid, it's whoever has the most money, wins it. And
Yes.
it's just the way it goes. So if I'm a Golden Boy fighter and you're fighting for main events, say, and main events outbids Golden Boy, then the fight's going to be promoted by main events, and that's just the way it is.
This
So
is
it's-
exactly why. So when we talked before about the Tyson Fury move, like why did Tyson Fury go to Top Rank? To me, that's about purse bids.
Yeah.
That's about because Frank Warren's not going to outbid Al Heyman
No.
for any of these fights. You know what I mean? But now when it comes to being Tyson Fury being the mandatory contender for either Anthony Joshua or for Deontay Wilder,
You got ESPN
now you
money.
have ESPN and Top Rank saying, "Okay, we'll go to purse bid with you. We'll go
Yeah.
to war with you, right?" And then
Yep.
that way we can bid on it and make you the A side of that event. We'll pick the venue. We'll pick all this different stuff.
Yeah.
And I think in many ways that's just a strategic move to be able to say, like, I need someone to back me up. I love working with Frank Warren as my promoter, but I need someone with dollars that's going to come in here and win these purse bids when I have to go to them, certainly because I will with Deontay Wilder and with Anthony Joshua.
Yeah.
So, makes sense. All right, man.
Guess that's gonna do it for this week, man. Any big fights coming up next weekend?
There's fights every weekend. There's fights on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday.
Right, every
There's fights
day.
every. I can't even keep track of it all. I'm
trying to think of the next one that's coming up.
I know. I probably should have prepared for that question.
This weekend you have Ito and Herring
Yeah.
fighting in Florida. Jose Pedraza's on that against Antonio Lozada.
Charlo's coming up soon, isn't it?
Yeah, and then
Charlo
Austin
Harrison.
Trout
Yeah.
against Terrell Geisha.
Austin Trout. Yeah.
That's from Biloxi. Then DAZN fight, you got Devin Haney and Antonio Moran fighting that day. Hughie Fury fighting.
Did you say Huey Fury?
Yeah.
Did you see the last guy Huey Fury beat?
Yes, I remember that, man.
No, that was the first guy. Did you see
Oh.
the last guy he beat?
No. Then in 2 weeks you
He
got
was like 0-26.
Yeah, 2 weeks.
was.
Anthony Joshua against Andy Reese and Colin Smith against the ever so dangerous
When is that
to
one?
be announced.
June 1, right?
Yeah, June 1st.
Yeah, June
That's
1.
Andy Ruiz?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Andy Ruiz and Anthony Joshua filling in for the Jarrell Big Baby Miller as a result
Oh,
of the
yeah, that's
cocktail of banned substances that he tested positive for.
And on that card, you got Katie
A
Taylor.
fruit basket.
Yeah,
Katie
man.
Taylor fighting for the WBA, WBO, IBF, and WBC in a
It's
lightweight
about
unification.
time, baby. There we go.
That
She's
girl
gonna
ain't
get
no
it.
joke.
Oh yeah,
She's gonna
against
get
Delphine
it.
Pearson.
I'm happy I've been looking forward to her being an undisputed champion for a
Yeah,
little
so
bit.
she'll be
Oh,
undisputed.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I don't want to write off someone's opponent in that way, but I have so much confidence in Katie Taylor's ability that it's hard for me to
She's
imagine.
like a female Lomachenko.
Dude, yeah, she's bad.
yeah, then
She's
you
bad.
got a big card in 2 weeks too, and I think I'm gonna go ahead and head out to this one. And when I mean big, and not necessarily as far as the fights go as big, but just a big card all the way around with like fights. You got Devin Alexander and Ivan Redkach, Hugo Centeno Jr. fighting Willie Monroe.
Oh, cool.
So you got a bunch of fights out in the desert at I think it's the Saboba Casino. So I think I'll head out that way, check out some fights
Check out some fights in the desert.
in the deserts. That's right, man. But we want to thank you for coming in, man. We appreciate it, Bill.
I also want
it.
to
Yeah.
give you an opportunity to give any shout-outs. Obviously, Jackrabbit, if there's an Instagram or somewhere we should follow you or
Yes.
anything you want us to know about, there's the camera.
Yeah, give a shout out to Jackrabbit Boxing Gym. We've been doing a lot of spectacular things. I got a chance to finish a shower over there, as well as we got new trainers that have been coming to help out. Trevor Sobrano and Ivan and all of us. We've been making the gym way more exciting, and working with the kids has been phenomenal. And he got a son named Ashton. Man, that kid is ridiculous.
That's Superman, right?
Yeah, Superman. He's bad.
Now H2O,
Oh, he changed it?
H2O.
because it's like Bruce Lee uses the term, to be like
That's
water.
badass, yeah.
He like literally this
Formless,
kid,
shapeless.
This kid came from Mexico, 17-year-old kid. Ashton just left 14 to 15. The kid won one of the tournaments at the PAL event, and then he wanted to fight Ashton, and Ashton beat the kid. The kid, grown man, phenomenal.
What is he? A 9-time national champion, 2-time international champion,
Yes,
right?
Yes.
Nice.
He's been fighting grown men. There's some people he done sparred with that are pros that do not want the videos posted.
I believe it. I believe it.
All right.
And then anywhere else, should we follow you anywhere? Is there any, or should we follow Jackrabbit?
On Jackrabbit. You can find me at it's dollar bills, but the dollar the O is a 0.
Yeah.
And the I is a 1, and there's a Z at the end.
I'll put it in the description.
Yeah.
All right,
On
Stacks, what do you got?
Instagram.
And then you can follow me at Supreme Boxing on all social media. You can follow us on IG, on Twitter, and on Facebook. And also, if you're watching, be sure to follow the Nevada Boxing Hall of Fame. Yeah, that's something special, near and dear to my heart this year. We have a lot of inductees to the Nevada Boxing Hall of Fame. Great class.
It does seem like a good event, though.
It is. It's a great event. And one thing about this, I know people ask about the meet and greet. Okay, so it's a 2-day event. You have a meet and greet. Basically, you have a cocktail party that night. The next day, you have a WBC Greenbelt Challenge in Vegas. And then you have the gala where the Hall of Fame inductees get inducted, of course, into the Hall of Fame. There's tickets for everything available. For the meet and greet, when you show up, it's not like the other meet and greets where you pay the $50 to get in and then you have to pay for autographs or pictures. You get to mingle with them, and those autographs or pictures are free, because some fighters won't sign autographs, but they'll take a picture with you. And it's all free. There's no extra charge once you enter. I know some fans go to the Boxing Expo. This year, for instance, Julio Cesar Chavez was charging like $150 on top of whatever it costs to get in for a picture or an autograph, not both. Whereas, you go into the Hall of Fame, you meet and greet, you get to mingle with them. It's free with your paid admission. Same thing with the gala. There's so many fighters, ex-champions, ex-world champions. You might end up sitting at a table. You buy a ticket to the gala, you might end up sitting at a table with somebody like Sugar Ray Leonard, with Julio Cesar Chavez, with whoever. They don't put tables and just say all the champions are going to sit here. They interact, and they sit people with champions. So you have a good chance of actually sitting with champions
You
while
could
you're there.
sit with champions.
There you go. So be sure to follow the Nevada Boxing Hall of Fame, and then follow us on Supreme Boxing as well. And of course, Beat the Count podcast.
I was gonna say, yeah, I'll give a shout out for my stuff. You can follow me at Beat the Count on Instagram, at Beat the Count on Facebook, and virtually every podcast platform that exists. And so that's it.
We're out.
That's all I got, you guys.
Facebook, I'm on.
yeah.
William Santos. William is my first name. Bill is what everybody calls me. It's short.
William Santos. And I'll post the dollar bills thing so you guys get the spelling right. Thank you very much for coming down. I appreciate it.
Bill.
We'll be back with you guys next week. Peace.
Peace. That was pretty good.
Thank you for coming on, man.